Good afternoon, Israel briefers from all around the world, and welcome to another edition of the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And a reminder that if you would like to receive our weekly newsletter with original articles, some of my media appearances, as well as the Israel Brief, please be in touch with us via our website and we will add you to the database. As always, it is Thursday, which means a little later in the show, I will take the audience question. Today, it's one with a difference, and I will announce the mensches and the morons of the week. Now, somebody took issue with the fact that I say mensches and not the correct Yiddish, which apparently is mentioned. Now, I'm not a native Yiddish speaker, and I do like to make this as inclusive of everybody, including the many viewers who do not speak Yiddish and who are not Jewish, so that everybody understands what I mean. So I hope that gives an adequate explanation why I don't use the correct Yiddish, but I consider myself duly corrected. It is day 657 since the 7th of October. And as we say to you every single day, we are not going to stop reminding the world that there are still 50 hostages being held captive in the hell of Gaza. While the world's media are focused on the humanitarian situation for civilians in the Gaza Strip, as we should be, who is concerned for the humanitarian situation for our hostages? We know when we saw the hostages that were released during the ceasefire in January that they are being routinely starved and tortured. We saw how emaciated they all were. I don't hear any outcries from the international media, who have stopped telling the stories of the hostages, and foreign leaders, especially Western foreign leaders. So here, guys, this is where I want to appeal to you, because we are not helpless and we are not powerless. And at every opportunity, be it in letters or in person or on social media, we need to hold the media and our leaders accountable for the omission of facts. So while we're talking about aid, let's take a look at the latest developments, because the accusation that there are starving children in Gaza is certainly gaining momentum. But what is the reality? It's very hard to fathom or to discern fact from fiction. One of the images that a lot of media that I've seen, the Daily Mirror, the Daily Express, CNN, Sky News, and others, all show this or a particular image of a emaciated child. However, the mother is plump and healthy looking, and many people are discussing this on social media, whether or not this is AI. Is the mother starving her child, which I like to think she isn't? Or does the child have some kind of pre-existing health condition that has got nothing at all to do with food? What is the reality? We know that the United Nations, about a month or so ago, had to walk back the accusation of 14,000 babies would die in Gaza. We know they walked that back and said that that wasn't true. We know they walked back the fact that there were so-called 10,000 aid trucks waiting to go in and couldn't because of a blockade. There isn't a blockade in place, and Israel is a tiny country. We would certainly notice 10,000 aid trucks. Also, scholars who study famine have said there is no widespread famine. However, this narrative is gaining momentum. So let's look at some of the facts on the ground. Yesterday, the IDF released footage that they had obtained from one of the tunnels, which showed senior Hamas members looking very plump and well fed. And they were sitting with massive plates of rice. They had meat, they had exotic fruits, and they were boasting about how they had all of this and at the same time decrying that their civilians are starving. We know from hostage testimony, in particular Eli Sharabi, testifying to the UN Security Council, that while he was in captivity, Hamas members would walk in and out of the tunnels with boxes of aid and not give anything to the hostages, who existed on half a pitta a day. We know, because we have seen the footage, that there were 958 trucks, as well as pallets of food and humanitarian aid, medicine and that, sitting in the sun on the Gaza side of the border after they had been let in. Now, if there is a blockade in place, that aid is not being let in. However, the aid is on the Gaza side of the border. The United Nations admitted that they collected 100 trucks for distribution, but that it's not safe for them to distribute their aid. Now, yesterday, briefing the international media, the IDF said that they had offered the United Nations an armed escort, when they distribute the aid, and the United Nations agencies said no. I also want to hold Western and international media to account, because I think I can name on two fingers, in fact I can name on two fingers, the only journalists who've actually spoken about this very, very, very important point in the briefing, and that's Yotam Confino, and that is Trey Yingst of Fox News, who actually spoke about that. Why is the media hiding this information from you, the viewer? Now, added to that, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which to date has distributed over 87 million meals directly to civilians in Gaza, bypassing Hamas, said they have appealed to NGOs, to the United Nations, to global leaders to please join their efforts, to combine efforts, because surely everybody is interested in making sure that civilians in the Gaza Strip receive much needed humanitarian aid. Why is the UN, the mainstream media, NGOs and Western leaders politicizing humanitarian aid? It is ghoulish and it's ghastly, and we have to hold our leaders and the media to a higher standard of accountability. Now, if this wasn't enough, this morning a rocket was fired from Khan Yunis in the center of the Gaza Strip towards the GHF distribution point at the Rafah crossing. Not towards Israel, towards the GHF distribution point at the Rafah crossing. It landed about 250 meters away from where Palestinians were lining up to receive their aid. Could you imagine what would have happened if that rocket landed where those civilians were? How many would have been killed? The GHF have confirmed this and have said, yet again, it's another attempt by Hamas to kill Palestinian civilians so that they can push this blood libel anti-Israel narrative. Those are the words from the GHF. Those are not my words. Let's take a look at the next story, and it's with regards to negotiations around a possible ceasefire and hostage deal. Now, Hamas has given their response to the Qatari mediators. Yesterday, I told you that their initial response was so outrageous that Qatar and Egypt didn't even bother showing it to the Israelis. They said, go back and come with another response. So this is in response to Israel's offer of a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for hostages. Now, apparently, there are still two sticking points. The one issue is humanitarian aid. Hamas do not want the GHF in Gaza. They want the UN. That should tell you everything you need to know, because they can control the UN. And the withdrawal, the issue of withdrawal. Now, what is interesting, and it's actually going to be addressed in the audience question, is that these issues were nearly sewn up until 28 countries decided to write a letter demanding Israel agrees to a ceasefire. The office of Prime Minister Netanyahu did confirm that they had received Hamas's response and were busy evaluating it. We now go to Spain, and this story just made my hair stand on end. Vueling, which is one of the Spanish airlines, are reported to have kicked at least 50 Jewish children returning from a summer camp. These were French Jewish children, and their camp counselor off the plane for singing in Hebrew. From the reports from the campers, who were between the ages of 10 and 15, and their counselor, they were told that Israel is a terrorist state. And there's actually footage of the counselor being arrested quite brutally by the Spanish police. Now, the airline released a statement earlier today, basically accusing the children of endangering passengers on the flight and playing with emergency equipment. They were between the ages of 10 and 15. You mean to tell me you can't control little children and you can't get them to behave? However, the story coming from the children is completely different. They say one child was singing in Hebrew, and this is what has happened. Meanwhile, Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism, Amichai Chikli, called it a very, very worrying anti-Semitic event. Spain, since the 7th of October, has become one of the most anti-Israel countries in the entire world. Obviously, they haven't learned any lessons from their history. And a short while ago, Israel's foreign ministry said they were speaking to their embassy in Madrid, and all the children, all the campers and their counselor managed to reach their destination at the end safely. And finally, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar continues his bilateral visit, or his state visit, to Ukraine. Yesterday he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The two discussed the fact that both countries are at war and showed mutual support for each other, and also discussed how Iran poses a threat to both countries. Iran poses a threat to Ukraine in that they are arming the Russians with drones and other military equipment to attack Ukrainian towns and positions. The foreign minister handed the president a copy of the Dina report, which details the crimes of sexual violence, the crimes of rape and sexual violence committed against Israelis on the 7th of October and hostages in captivity. Yesterday, the foreign minister also visited the site of Babi Yar. Babi Yar is just on the outskirts of Ukraine and was a ravine that was used in the Holocaust, where the Jews were rounded up, forced to dig a pit, and over a period of about 3 days, 40,000 Jews were stripped naked and murdered. And the reports from the few eyewitnesses who saw it said the ground moved for days after. And today, the foreign minister will commemorate the founding of the Chisinau ghetto on the 24th of July, 1941. So those are our top stories. Let's take a look at the audience question, and it comes from me. And my audience question is aimed at all the countries who signed that ridiculous letter the other day demanding that Israel agree to a ceasefire. They also contradicted themselves, because if you read the letter, they call for an immediate ceasefire and then say a ceasefire must be negotiated. So what is it? Must then we negotiate a ceasefire or agree to a ceasefire? You can't have both. And it's also directed towards the media. And I want to know this from you. What is your game plan here? Before you wrote that stupid letter, Israel had Hamas agreeing to the sticking points in the hostage negotiation. We were right there. We were right at that point of signing and agreeing to a 60-day ceasefire and the release of a certain amount of hostages, both the living and the dead. But you scuppered all of this. Because the moment you put the pressure on Israel and not on Hamas, a terror organization who's prescribed in many of your countries, you give a license to them to push for more war, treat our hostages more appallingly, and use their civilian populations as human shields. Hamas invaded Israel on the 7th of October. Hamas have boasted about sacrificing their own civilian population in order to achieve their strategic aims, which is the extermination of the state of Israel, have boasted about the fact that their civilians are human shields. You can find this in the Henry Jackson report. You can also find it in numerous sources online. Have stolen humanitarian aid from their civilians, have fired at civilians receiving aid. Ergo, Hamas is responsible for creating the environment that could result in the genocide of both the Israeli and the Palestinian people. And the blood is on your hands because you sanction this behavior by putting the pressure on Israel, your democratic ally, and not on Hamas. What is your end game here? What are you thinking? Are you pandering to sectarian politics in your countries? What's the deal here? The media, let's not even get into it with you. I'm a journalist. We have to do our due diligence. Why are the rest of you so damn lazy? Is it because if you fact check, you'll have to admit you're wrong? Is it because you actually have to do some work and fact check? Or are you so consumed with Israelophobia that you actually cannot see the wood for the trees? We don't expect you to sing Hatikva, but we do expect you to check your facts. The lives of Jews in countries all around the world are literally at risk every single day. I hold you accountable. So that's my question asked and answered. And now I will calm down and let you know who your menschers and your morons are. So let's take a look first of all at the morons. And we begin with, surprise, surprise, the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary David Lammy for his ludicrous position on Israel and this absolute, this clinging to a two-state solution. Any of you countries still demanding a two-state solution are not paying attention to the facts on the ground here, both from the Palestinian side and from Israel's side. So you need to get over that. You need to divorce that fixation on the two-state solution. For Tahir Ali, who has called for British soldiers to assist Gazans in the Gaza Strip, yeah, that's going to go down really, really, really well. Stupid moron. And Amal Clooney. Amal Clooney, you are considered an international human rights lawyer, one of the best. Your father is Lebanese Druze, and yet you have been silent about the massacre, the rapes, the genocide of the Druze in Syria. Shame on you. You should be disbarred. And now let's end on something positive and look at who are the mentions of the week. And I love this. Somebody recommended the hostages for having to endure everything that they've endured for now 657 days. Their families as well. Every single one is a universe, and every single one in Israel is the first thing we think about every single morning. And the next mensch, may he rest in peace, the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, for not just his supreme talent, whether you liked his music or not just for the music and the memories, but Ozzy, thank you for kicking back against the haters, for playing in Israel when so many told you not to, for taking a stand against the BBC and the support of Hamas, for taking a stand against anti-Semitism. You are a mensch amongst men, and may your memory be eternally blessed. And Sharon, Kelly, Amy and Jack and the whole family, our love, our thoughts and our prayers are with you. God bless. So guys, that's it from me for today. Please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is right here, The Israel Brief. Don't forget to subscribe if you like our content. We are on Facebook at Local Site, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, and on X at Lay of the Land 5. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom. This is a little bit of a longer brief than normal, a very impassioned one. God bless, and I will see you again on Monday. Bye for now.